everyone to this session. Welcome to Rise of the Crocodile Economy, business leading exponential change progress, decoupling growth and emission. And to do this, to deep dive into this subject, I have a brilliant panel, which I will introduce very soon. This will be about exponential leadership campaign that we drive together with Race to Zero and CDP. We launched a report just a few weeks ago with showing a remarkable trend. Both countries decoupling their GDP from emissions, but also many companies doing that, showing the same trend that real progress is possible. We have some pockets of the future here. We have the rising economy at some few pockets. And the curve we see looks like a crocodile jaw, opening its jaws. So hence, crocodile economy. It's a new book coming up in a couple of months with all of us as authors. Anyway, we're going to explore how the data proves this movement and how we can expand that and create systems change. We're going to deep dive into real corporate cases. And to do that, we have a brilliant panel. Tim Lenton, professor at Exeter University, and Celsing, Chief Sustainability Officer at Alfa Laval, María, Mendiluce, CEO at We Mean Business Coalition, and Johan Falk at Exponential Roadmap Initiative, CEO. And I'd like to start with you, Johan. Can you please show us the insights from the report and teach us about what does it tell us? What is the crocodile economy?
Thank you. It's great to be here. And the crocodile economics is here. That is the starting point. And what does it mean? It means basically that we see a bigger trend that we can raise GDP, we can raise revenues while cutting emissions. And that basically looks like the jaws of the crocodile. See if we can get the slides to work.
Maybe a slide for, yeah. Now we're closing. Yeah.
Now we're closing, yes. So
next slide, maybe.
Next slide. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So let's start with the countries. And we looked at both territorial emissions as well as consumption-based emissions. And we see a strong pattern. Here you can see 28 countries, which basically are showing the jaws of the crocodile. Europe is a great example, but we also see it in Americas, we see it in South Africa, and in a number of countries. And this is, of course, also based on the renewable energy and efficiency acceleration. That's the main reason why we actually been able to achieve this. Now, we also see that there are a number of countries coming really close, like China, reaching a point which could start to move emission downwards. So we might be close, actually, to the big global point of bending the curve of the emissions. So that's the countries. But what about companies? We looked at companies' scope 1 and 2 emissions. We see a similar trend where we looked at around 30 companies of opening jaws where companies can drive up revenues while cutting emissions at the same time. But what about scope 3 if we're talking about the complete value chain, which companies say is incredibly challenging? We actually identified a high number of companies which shows a similar type of pattern, that it is possible, it is achievable to, at the same time, drive up revenues and cut scope 1 and 2 and 3 emissions. So it's not just individual signs. This is a basic trend, so it's very positive.
Very brief. What do you think about the structural shift? Why is it important for business leaders right now and here?
The business has a is tremendously important, of course, in the transformation. And when we talk about leadership from companies, we basically expect companies to do the following things. Well, first, to decarbonize their value chain, work across their value chain to cut emissions, work with their suppliers, but also customers downstream. And we will see examples of that. The second thing is not just focus on the down curves, but actually identify which solutions you should scale up and scale up exponentially in order to gain a competitive advantage and transform your portfolio. And then apply what we call the fourth pillar, finance. Finance, make investments in your value chain, in nature, in carbon removals, in order to drive the transformation. And finally, engage in policy influencing, because without enabling policies, it will be very, very difficult. So we need a massive force of companies to engaging in policy influencing as well. So that's basically what we talk about. And that is also what our companies are implementing.
Thank you. Turning to you, Tim. Your research has been fundamental in showing how can we create systemic change on the tipping points. What does this insight tell us about where we are in the global transition? And how can we read this?
Well, it's very good. The people who argued that we have to degrow might not be wholly accurate. This is a clear evidence that economies can grow whilst reducing emissions. There's a separate debate about whether all material consumption could be reduced, but I think it's really good news, and it's signs of what I call a positive tipping point, that we can get into a situation where the engine of growth could actually also be the engine of shutting down greenhouse gas emissions, which we know is crucial. And it absolutely fits with the picture that essentially, as we imagine a clean green future, it has to be an electrified one. And electrifying end uses of energy is way more efficient than burning stuff, which is kind of prehistoric way of living. And increasing efficiency should generally boost productivity. So I think it all fit together in a really encouraging way. And we're not suffering what the economists, they called it Jevons paradox, which is if things got efficient, we'd all just consume more. That would obliterate the benefits. No, we're seeing great report. We're seeing, it's true for nations and for companies that you can grow better and reduce emissions faster.
Very interesting. And how do you see, how can businesses apply this knowledge in the real world to form and to accelerate their progress and the outcome and the collaborations that they do?
Well, this has got the bottom line at heart, and the report is kind of telling them that, seizing the opportunity of the transition to clean and green and to destroying nature, renewing nature, actually could have better revenue generation for them, in the overall budget balance, better prospects for them. So I think it's it's in their own interest to be taking that on board. And I suspect they need to question some of the economic advice they might have been picking up from the ether that's been telling them different things.
This is a new business school teachings. See that.
Well, yeah, I occasionally drop down into my business school and help out with teaching, and maybe I should do a bit more, because I'm completely behind the thinking and the evidence that's in this study. Yeah,
maybe you should. I'm going off track here, but I think it's an interesting topic. So going to the real business then, Anna. Yes. You've been with Alfa Laval transforming your supply chains and operations real, and have a long history of really doing this. How does it look from inside? How do you actually drive this exponential change?
Yeah, let's very concrete then. How our growth with reducing our operational emissions, and be very specific. You actually have to it costs a lot of money and resources, and you have to know who's accountable. It's me. I'm the CSO. I'm responsible for the strategy, but it's specific because that's where the money is. And then secondly, you have to invest in energy efficiency, have monitoring IoT solutions across all our main sites to continually improve, work differently. This is a new way of organizing yourself because it's going to be very many different people connecting and working together. Then thirdly, we have to source, of course, renewables. That's not always easy. So sometimes going for solar panels, working with PPAs, etc. And most importantly, face fossil fuels. And we have very concrete investment plans that have been approved by the board to the date when it should happen and it's happening. So that's why we even said we don't go for 2030 as our target for zero in operational emissions by 2027, because we can and we need to show leadership. So then continues to follow up, and I did it last week, so we are on track. So very concrete.
You had a deadline now.
Yeah, we do, and it's working.
Yeah, very good. And looking at key enablers, looking at collaboration, finance, technology, what was it? Can you deep dive into that?
Definitely, we have to work together. We have to work together across the organization. We have to work differently and dare to work differently with finance department, our digital department, with our operations, and all different departments needs to be involved. And we also need our partners, like the IoT solutions I mentioned from Schneider Electric, or that we, when we let Scope 3 upstream, that's with suppliers of low emission metals, etc. So really nobody can do this alone. We have to dare to be transparent and trustworthy and find the right partnerships to drive this.
Very interesting. I had in a discussion yesterday about the need for being just honest and transparent in order to create real innovation, real trusted partnerships.
Because you really have to sit down around the table and roll up the sleeves and work together on very detailed questions. So I was in an FMC First Mover Coalition meeting last week where purchasers say, we need a standard to be able to know what we buy, for example, and then figuring that out together, or the agreement that we need to set across the value chain to make this happen. So we really need to get into details.
Nitty-gritty, real knowledge and real work. Very good. And rolling up the sleeves is very nice to do here where it's quite hot.
It is.
So we'll work on. Thank you so much. Over to you, María. How, from your position in women business, where you see a lot of press, but you also see governments working together, can you see any tipping point showing up in the corporate leadership and also in the collaboration between governments and corporates? Can you mention something about that?
Yes, I will. But let me first start by the comments you made that you have a deadline to phase out fossil fuels. I'm sure you're doing it because it will make your company more competitive. So let me then, I cannot avoid this. I did my PhD, 5 years of my life studying energy intensity, which is what you are reflecting in curves.
Yeah.
And so when I did this for Spain, but can be applicable to countries and companies, to break down those graphs into several factors that push the energy intensity, the crocodile jaw to be bigger. The first one is structure, is how much of energy intensive processes your economy or your business have. To change that, but if you're a cement company, you're a company and you're going to be very intense. And how much that contributes to the overall economic growth will determine the importance of that economy. The second one is the energy efficiency. How much energy you need to produce that GDP or that revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. And that one is the carbon intensity, how much carbon it is embedded in the energy. Okay, well, electrification, which we spoke before, it's a driver of those curves because electrification will make the process much more efficient. So heat pumps or EVs are 3 to 5 times more efficient. They need less energy to transport or to heat a house. And that's why electrification is going to be a key driver. And then clean, renewable energies reduces the carbon intensity. So, this is multiplying everything. So if you electrify with clean energy, those jobs are going to be much bigger. But more importantly, it's going to make companies and countries more competitive. So we see more and more businesses that want to have clean electricity. And in a recent survey that we did at Women Business, 97% of business are only going to invest in energy in the future because it makes businesses.
Very, very good. And looking at, we're here at COP, and there's a lot of business leaders and nation leaders and regional leaders. What would your key message be to them if they want to drive the crocodile economy?
There is a lot of noise in this COP.
Yeah, in many ways.
And in many ways. There is a nasty noise, and one that is not helping no one. A noise that is saying that actually renewables is not good, it is burn, and that's stupid things that we often hear that are not based on reality, that based on someone wanting to push an agenda. There's also a lot of noise saying that business are not active or are not present at COP. Well, there's lots of business at COP, but I think what businesses are doing now is are implementing their commitments at home. That's what they're doing. They're doing the work. Okay. And we're seeing this all over the place. And those businesses that do not come to COP or are not in those circles, I think it's important they are not confused by the noise. The noise, it's clearly 97% of business across the world want clean electricity. And it's important that if you're in business that you're not in these spheres, that you understand this is where the trends are going, because it's good for business.
Thank you very much. We have some time to continue this discussion. So I want to ask you.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize what you say, Maria, that it's really, we are in this because we think it's goodness. It's a life opportunity. It's a really big challenge, but it is an opportunity. Our purpose is to pioneer positive impact. That's why we are in business. And we think this is the only way forward term. It's going to be much more resilient. It's going to be much more economically. And that's why also our CEO and our board management is all in this. And that's, of course, a really big enabler. If that's hard if you don't have it, but
that's good. Can I ask you also, what would your advice to other companies be if you would,
yes,
if they would learn from you?
Yeah, I would say that it's all about numbers and talking about this, connecting the value. You have to talk the business language, because it is, as I started saying, the accountability has to lie in business to drive this. And if you can't translate sustainability, resilience into economical terms, then you're not going to get through. But if you have very concrete examples, which we do have, on how much this is making your business make money, then I think it's a no-brainer. But you also have to be ready to spend time, effort, and have a really good plan to do it. And if you have that, your board and your top management will be on board, I think.
Yes, and we are here at COP because the governments are meeting. And the message from the business community is very clear. You know, the transition is unstoppable, makes business sense, it's good for the economy, it creates jobs. It helps us reduce our import bills as well. It helps us, when well managed, reduce the cost of energy for people.
Very good.
But let me tell you something. There is $1 trillion that are going to fossil fuel subsidies. It makes no sense. It is inefficient. It doesn't help the poorest. Furthermore, it creates further externalities in the form of air pollution that impacts millions of people around the world, to the point the OECD and other institutions have said that it is 5.5 billion of economic losses. So I think it is about time that business looks at their subsidies and realign those to create the economy of the future, which is going to be electric, which means investing in the grids, investing in storage, reducing the permitting times, making it easy for people and business to access the energy of the future, which is clean electricity.
Very good. And now we have the products with the low emission products that's needed, and we need to create the demand, and that's where those money come in hand, and also procurements, for example, really for the collective future to be positive.
Thank you. Tim.
No,
yes.
It's good. I want to build on what you're saying. It's so, what you're summarizing is we're in this situation when feedback, like fossil fuel subsidy,
existed to maintain the status quo of a fossil fuel powered economy, and some political actors, elite caps, if you like, from fossil fuel companies are also fighting harder to keep those balancing feedbacks to maintain the status quo. But what we're discussing is a really powerful amplifier in the system that we could, if we see the shift of capital, as you well described it, to being part of the amplifying feedback. So shift those fossil subsidies over to propelling the transition to realizing this self-propelling position where growth is going to beget faster progress on decarbonisation. Then we're in the realm positive tipping point where the amplifiers get so strong they can become self-propelling. But none of that, that won't happen without some of us, businesses included, standing up against the people who want to maintain the fossil fuel status quo. So I was delighted to hear some of that. And I think if some businesses are committed on this, could make some more strong collective public statements about, I think that will help build confidence amongst democratic leaders who frankly are too easily influenced by misinformation and are wavering, even if they're good democratic leaders.
So there was a letter that a group of business launched at the beginning of the COP, including, a network of 100,000 businesses across the world that are asking actually this to realign incentives. We need the incentives for the future, for the clean energy and phase out fossil fuel subsidies.
Very good. Johan.
Just to connect to, I've been listening, incredibly good discussion. Firstly, where we really passed positive tipping points is renewable energy, electrification, electrical vehicles. But I would say that we massively underestimated the opportunity of electrification. It has a massive and efficient electrification, has a massive impact because it will also influence everything from how we work, how we do steel, how we do aluminium, how we basically transform the complete industry, but also fuels over time. Talk about moving to e-fuels. And so there is an opportunity to make that curve much, much steeper. But then we also need to push some of the other solutions over the tipping point. The material transformation, circularity, and the food and land, regen ag, and sustainable forestry. So we need a similar type of thinking because otherwise it will be difficult to open up the jaws even more. Then maybe we have something called, which is a narrative tipping point, because I really wish within 3 years, 1, 2, 3 years, that all countries are thinking, how should we win the new economy? Not thinking about sharing of burdens, the down curves, and just making their NDCs, but actually how they should win electrical trucks, electrification, regen ag, how they should build a resilient, strong economy. And then if we can get the companies and the countries to work in tandem, then we passed that narrative tipping point, maybe. That could be formulated.
Yeah.
But it's great that you bring up the whole nature angle, Johan, because we're being spectacularly inefficient in how we feed ourselves. We're using 80% of the world's land for livestock production to give us 17% of our calories and 37% of our protein. So it's great to see this story emerging around a more efficient energy economy. But my word, we've got a great opportunity to switch to a far, far more efficient food system. And the meat lobby are stronger than the fossil fuel lobby at the moment. So again, if businesses are part of standing up to the status quo there and part of fostering that change, that'll be crucial, because it's no good just having a lot of lip service to we need to regenerate nature or be nature positive without tackling the fundamental driver, which is not all meat. It's very specifically isolated, top of the list, grazing fed beef, pasture beef consumption, followed by lamb. These are wildly inefficient ways of feeding ourselves. And if you really need to eat, that kind of meat protein, well, somebody will make a great business out of synthesizing it in the lab, as they already are. So let's see this efficiency growth transformation happen for the agribusiness, the whole land food system as well.
And can I just share some good news also that we are working on that together with other companies like Tetrapack and many, many other partners.
Happy to hear. And we will conclude now with just every one of you saying a sentence or an action. How can we show leadership, or how can we inspire leadership to take action to drive the crocodile economy? Who want to go first?
There are very many positive business stories, how the transformation is bringing business value. And I would like the media to amplify those and not be looking for what is not working, but rather what is working, what can inspire others to take action on climate.
I can add then that if you have transformation at the core of your business, well, then resilience, growth, and competitiveness goes hand in hand, and it's good business.
Thank you.
Well, to some businesses out there, go out and grow the grid. So to speed electrifying the future, because we have a great opportunity to do that. And we could definitely be going faster at the positive tipping to clean energy and electrifying everything we can.
You focus on how incredibly attractive it is to scale up the solutions. Everyone focusing on communicating the business results after that to get it into a race to the top of upscaling solutions even faster.
Thank you so much. Brilliant conversation. Looking forward to continue. And for you out there who want to read the report and get inspired by these stories, go to exponentialroadmapinitiative.org and you find it there. And open the jaws, everyone. Yes, let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.